We are back, and excited to go into this next steps of cleaning out the garage of your mind. And so we use a garage as an illustration of when you're hoarding things, or like hoarding thoughts, right? Our brain is very much like a computer. It logs, it perceives, it receives, it downloads, it can store things, it can get glitches, it can shut down, it can lock up. I mean, very much your physical brain operates like a computer. Now we're a spiritual being and we live in here and we use that interface to talk through our soul and you communicate with people and store things and record things and all of that. So it's really good to know how it works, and it's good to know how to work with it. If you don't know how to work with your brain, it's going to come back to bite you. I'm just going to say, the way God created us, when we work against that system, it always comes back to bite us. There's a certain way He made us to stay healthy, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. And we have to find out that way and walk ye in it. Okay. And so we've been talking about people who have their brain, so stored full of stuff. It's like boxes shoved in the garage, and it makes it really difficult to face those things because they may have been in there for years. There's projects in there that you started in your brain, you never finished, and so you shove that way to the back of the garage. You can't get at your tools. You can't get at, your oil, change the oil in your car. You can't even park your car in the garage. If your brain is very much like this garage that we're talking about, it makes it difficult to operate in life and have success. And you will feel so weighed down by projects you started and never finished them. Like a guy who's got, a boat tore apart and a motorcycle tore apart, and he's going to do this and do that. But then, I don't know, we piled stuff around it and on it and, just kept going. But he knows the project's in there, but don't throw it out. Because I'm still going to work on that. I know it's been in there for 15 years, but we're still going to work on that. It's a promise to the brain where after a while you feel like you lied to yourself because it's been too long. And God's the God who starts things. He's the beginning, but He's also the end, and He always finishes. He doesn't have open-ended anything. It's like what He starts, He finishes it, and He is the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. But so when we're thinking that we're created in His image, He wants us to start something, but He also wants us to go through the process and then bring it to a culmination where we can say, it is finished. When our brain gets stuck, when we get in overload, it causes mental illness. It literally causes the synaptic nerves to deteriorate in the brain. It causes us to the good juices that are in the brain, like serotonin and dopamine, it dysregulates them or drains your brain of the things that it does need, because what's shoved in your garage of your brain is everything you haven't sorted or don't need. And we clarified in the last podcast that you can't have someone come in, can you clean out my brain? I went to a counselor and I paid him big bucks and he still didn't clean out my brain. I mean, what was the sense of me paying for him? He can only give you information. She can only give you information that helps you to make choices of how you're actually going to clean the garage. We can't clean your computer. And even on our own computers, right? You're at your office, you got your computer, you have all kinds of passwords, you got all kinds of places other people can't go because that's your information. You don't want people hacking in and stealing your information or moving your emotional state around or whatever. That's dangerous. If you're in a relationship where somebody does that, they're jackknifing, they're hacking into the program of who you are, and they're moving things around. That's dangerous. And you don't want that to happen. So we set up codes and passwords and things like that to even just to turn our computer on. And there's times we have to put it to sleep. We have to say, okay, we're not going to work on that project right now. I give that over to God, and I'm just going to put my computer to sleep and go rest. So we're very much like a computer. We got a whole filing system, and we can retrieve. Our brain is very good at retrieving and logging things. So that's why when we didn't file the things the way that they should. They're just a mess. Our whole desktop of our brain is just, you turn it on and it's so overstimulated, you can't even figure out if you're up or down. Well, that's when people lose hope. And when you lose hope, you've lost the fuel to your faith. When you lose hope, you've lost the fuel to your faith. You're not going to go anywhere because there's no fuel to your faith. It's just absolute confusion. And this is what we know about what God talks about with this. He says that he has not given us the spirit of fear, but of love and of power and a sound mind. That we have one tone, and it's peace. That's what he gives us. So this world messes us up. Sin touches us. We start to calculate things and log things wrong, and it causes confusion. The next thing you know, we've got all this stuff going on, and it makes it where we can't clean out our brain the way we should. In some sense, when somebody says that person has mental illness, the first thing that I hear is like, oh, their garage is really hoarded. There's all kinds of stuff that they didn't know what to do with. There's an overload. This is really a cleaning problem, because even if you got hit in the head and it damaged your gray matter, right? Your brain has the capability of rerouting and doing different things, but not if it's full of things that there's no room to do that in. And so cleaning out the thoughts that we haven't finished, the things that we started and never finished, the things someone else put on us, they shoved it in our garage. And we're like, what is this doing? It's not even mine. This doesn't even belong to me. And here it's in our garage. You ever find something when you're cleaning, you're like, what is this doing here? Oh, that's my friend Steve. He left that 2 years ago. Well, get it out of the garage. Call Steve and he can take it back or throw it out, right? So you shouldn't carry things that don't belong to you. Somebody guilted you and it wasn't your fault. Somebody put something on you and said, you know what, you're crazy, or you're flawed, you're defective somehow. And here, let me hurt you so I can add some boxes to your brain. Molestation, rape, all of those things, condescending words, all that does is, all that person's doing is like, here, let me box up a whole bunch of memories, and I'm just going to drop it off in the garage of your brain. And I'm not carrying it, but you're carrying it. You're going to be responsible to sort all of that. And, and the bigger the problem, the bigger the boxes. So it feels so overwhelming to the person who's gone through trauma, because you're like, if I open this thing's huge. And it's not even my box, and it wasn't even my stuff. I didn't ask for this to happen to me, but it did. So all of that ends up in the brain. And so last podcast we talked about, so what's the steps? We can talk about this, and everyone goes, yep, I know that's what's happened to me. Okay, so what are we going to do? Well, the first thing we have to face before opening that garage door is that a lot of the stuff in there we didn't ask for. We didn't know, we didn't have the knowledge to deal with it. We didn't know all kinds of stuff. There's some mercy areas. There's some grace things that are just like, oh my Lord, I didn't know. Proverbs talks about 3 different types of people. There's the simple. It mentions the simple man, the simple woman, the simple people. It'll mention that, and it makes it sound like, well, they must be a dummy. But really what the word simple means is like, I simply don't know. I never got the memo on that. I didn't know you were supposed to have empathy, or I didn't know it was supposed to operate a certain way. And I simply went to do the thing and I didn't know, right? And so this is why the Proverbs also says, get knowledge, get understanding, treat it like silver, like gold, because you need this so that you're not simple. Well, many times people will do that. They'll get the education, they'll get all the stuff that they need. Well, now I'm not simple in this area. Now I do know. Well, some of the stuff that's piled in the garage came from the times that you were simple. You just didn't know. So cut yourself some slack. Give yourself some grace. This is not trying to clean under condemnation. You ever try to clean something when you're feeling emotionally distraught, or like someone's trying to destroy you and now you're going to come in and just really sort things in your house and clean your kitchen cupboards or something. It does not work well. You'll do it out of anger, but other than that, it's still not going to work. You haven't really thought it through. Your thought is on this other thing that's so painful. So we cut ourselves some slacks on the things we didn't know. But then sometimes in life, some of the stuff that's in the garage is like, actually, I did know. And I get so mad. I was so hurt. I don't care. Well, the other person that Proverbs talks about, and Proverbs is a wisdom book, it talks about the fool. The fool knows, but goes and does it anyway. I know I'm hurting myself by doing drugs, but I don't care. I'm going to go do it anyway. Well, you're going to pile some boxes in the garage and it's going to weigh you down and you're going to feel punished by your very life. And now what? Right? Don't act the fool. And then there's the wise. The wise is the person who could see the past, sees how it brought you to where you are right now, and sees the fact that we have to make choices to get to the future. My future is laid out in such a way that it's my choices now that are going to make it good or bad. I don't want to act like the fool, and I got to figure out in order to go into my future where I'm simple. And, the humble person will be like, you know what? I'm always learning because I am simple in so many areas. Pride will tell you, no, you're just missing a couple things. You don't need to go to a class or get counseling or read a book or get in the Word of God. I mean, you don't need that. That's foolish. Don't let a person talk you out of cleansing who you are. The blood of Jesus is here to cleanse us from the power of sin that holds us bondage so we never do open the garage door. It helped to box some of the stuff up and get it in there to begin with. So you got to know who your enemy is. Don't make yourself the enemy where you're always talking about everything that's in there, but you become your own enemy by not participating in what it takes to make the choice to get it out. That makes sense? I hope it did. I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm just really trying to speak truth. I've been through this. I'm not speaking out of a book. Here's my counseling book on page 48. This is what it says to do to heal your brain. I mean, you can learn some stuff from that. But I tell you, the school, Hard Knocks, the school of like my garage was full. I literally in my lifetime have had 2 nervous breakdowns. And nervous breakdown, usually people go, I don't know what that is, so that just means you went crazy. And you need to go to the crazy house. And you need to be hospitalized. And no, I wasn't hospitalized. But literally, my brain had so much that, and I was on overload and I didn't know how to sort it. And I didn't know when I was sorting it, I had piles everywhere and I didn't know where to put it. And people around me didn't have the answers because a lot of times what you're sorting, if you reach out to your family for help, they got the same pile in their garage. There's rarely that you go, we're all just free as a family. Nope, the same boxes are in their garage too. So you can't go to somebody who has the same box and ask them to help you to get that box out. So I felt very lost and very crazy. And so what ended up happening is as it became overloaded, I couldn't get the garage door open of my brain. And then when it finally opened, everything just fell out on the ground. And that's really what a nervous breakdown is your whole nervous system is like, I can't do this. It just took up the whole computer. It's your brain locking up. It's the computer of your brain just going on freeze. And oh no, when you're in an office and you're sitting there on your computer and all of a sudden it locks up, it's a panicky feeling if you can't get back into that. Because that has all the information that helps you do everyday life. And a nervous breakdown, it seems like you go on in a race and you're just there like, I don't know what happened. I can't get out of bed. I can't this, I can't that. And so then what adds to it is instead of sorting boxes, what does the average person do? Well, here's what happened. I'm just going to criticize myself now, and I'm going to talk about how I don't know how this happened to me, and no one understands me, and I'm just a mess, and I'm flawed, I'm defective, I'm broken, I'm all of these different things, but that doesn't heal the brain. It doesn't clean out the garage of your brain. It's not unloading any boxes. In fact, you're sitting there putting stuff in and you're assembling a whole nother box. And where are you going to put that? Right? And why come into agreement with the stuff that's hoarding in your head? The reason it's sitting there is it's harming you. It's stuff that feels too big for you or whatever. I'm not going to come into agreement with that. So what we laid out last time is face the fact that you can't, the dysfunction is I can't park my car in my garage. I can't use my garage for what it needs to be used for. So I better face there's probably some hoarding going on. There's probably some things I have to sort. I'm sorry, Lord, but I'm scared to face that. I'm scared to get in there. I'm scared to open the door. What if it's too big for me? Well, here's the problem. You can run from it, but wherever you go, there you are. There you are, wherever you go. So the feeling of I have to get away from me, you can run as hard as you want. You're in you, right? And some people will come to the point of suicidal ideation because I don't want to face that garage. I don't want to deal with that pain. So you'd rather die in pain than to deal with the pain, which then causes everybody else a whole bunch of pain. It's not a good plan. It's not the plan that God wants. The word suicide itself, and there'll be podcasts on this in the future, just helping people walk up out of that. But it has two meanings. It has the sudden taking of your life meaning. Like you do something that you're just out, right? And then the other one, the majority of people do, and they don't even know they're doing it. The second meaning is a slow decay of your destiny. You're coming into agreement with the things that have already happened to you, and you're perpetuating that by saying it's going to happen again. Even though those people might not be anywhere near you, you're not at that age group anymore, you're not in those same situations, you're going to perpetuate it. It's a form of suicide. It's a slow decay of where God wants to take you, of your destiny. So I came to a point where I didn't have a choice, right? I had kids the second time it happened. And so I had to, I can't just let them like, well, I guess I'm out. I have responsibilities. I had a job. I had people that I need to take care of. And so then the first thing that happened to me is like, I'm such a loser. And that started coming on me because I couldn't do the tasks that I was needing to do. And I still wasn't facing the garage. So at your weakest point, now you're supposed to clean the garage. It's not a good plan, but once this happens, it is the only way out. You have to make a path in there so there can be some breathing room. And so I opened the garage of my mind, and it was just packed full. Stuff fell out all over the place. My body was shaking. I felt like death itself was at my door, just because there was so much. And I'm telling you right now, I have an empathy and a compassion for people where it's just so much. And you know, I too, though, can't go in and here, let me reprogram your brain. Here, let me take that for you or whatever. I can only come alongside of you as you're making those choices. It still comes down to you making those choices. And I know you don't trust yourself. I know you're like, well, part of the reason it's so full is stuff I participated in, or somehow I was chosen to let these things happen to me, so there must be something wrong with me or whatever. Don't get into that frame of thinking, because that stops you from making choices. All crisis demands change. All change demands decisions. All decisions have to have the opportunity to make a choice. You have to know what you're picking from. So I chose to open the door and I chose to leave it open. I went through a period of my life where I felt the grief of what was in there, and I didn't even know what was in there. I saw the boxes and it was like, this is me. Ugh. I didn't want to hang out with me. I didn't want to be with me. I didn't want to face me. I didn't want to talk about me. I didn't want to look through the stuff that would reflect me. Oh no. Right? But then one day, after leaving that open, I decided Well, I could look at a box. And it didn't sort that hard. I was able to throw some things out, and I was able to, it was kind of like fringe stuff. I started working on the fringe stuff. And as I did that, it was the craziest thing. It was like I got excited about going after another box. Well, I got to the third or fourth box, and all of a sudden, I had some really meaningful things, really deep things, really things that it was like, I don't even know what to do with this. How do I unpack this? How do I put it away? What file does it go in? Right? But I still had to acknowledge what was in there and go to God and ask him, what's my choices? What would you like me to do with this? You want me to hold on to it? You want me to forgive it, let it go? What's the plan? Right? And I relied on his direction because he's the creator of who I am. And so when that took place, I ended up getting quite a big load of boxes out in just like a week's period of time. And you know how, if your house has been messy, I'm sure that's happened with you. It's happened with me. We've had up to 12 kids. So trust me, my house was messy. And there's some times we're sorting through stuff or whatever, and you've got a project that goes on for 2 weeks and you got a messy area and people freak out about that. Like, you're in the middle of sorting stuff. Don't freak out about it. You don't have to have everything perfect. But I tell you what, when it gets all cleaned up and you get that room back to, it's like repainting the walls and cleaning the carpet and everything, and it feels so good, you'll find yourself gravitating toward the clean area. And you'll be like, hey, none of you kids come in here. This area is clean. It feels so good to finally be able to walk through that area of your garage and not be afraid you're going to trip on something or the boxes are going to pile on top of you. You've cleaned enough that you're like, I think I can breathe. Right? And then you can't go back into denial and you can't disassociate. There's still more stuff to do. But God will give you times of just reprieve. You go for a hike, you go see some waterfalls, you go on a vacation, and then you come back and something gets brought up and you're like, yeah, I got to clean out a couple more things. It's a project. It took years to fill the garage of your brain. One step at a time. How do you eat an elephant, right? How do you eat that elephant? If you went out and hunted an elephant for your food, that's a lot of food. How are you going to eat it? One bite at a time. The feeling will be, though, that I have to eat this whole thing right now. It feels so strong. It feels so... No, allow your brain to sort out the fact that I'm not solving world peace today, but I am dealing with this. And if I cry, I cry. I'm not going to die. If I get mad, well, I'm angry because I want something to stop. I'm going to have to walk it off. I'm going to have to process it through. I'm going to have to peel the onion. I'm going to have to get at the core of this. I'm going to have to get at the bitter root of it and pull that bitter root out. But I'm not going to walk away, and I'm not going to ignore my garage. This is my living space. This is where I need to park my car. My vehicle of ministry. This is where I need to park in that place of peace. This is where if I have to work on other things, I can actually get at the tools that I do have. And I'm making space. You're not going to do it all in one day. But you've opened it, you let it open, and they're leaving it open is accepting. This is really how it is. But the more it's cleansed out, the more you're going to have the ability to cleanse the next thing out, the more you're actually going to get excited about getting rid of some stuff. And you might even get down to a project that you promised yourself 10 years ago. And you're like, look, under all these boxes. Here's this motorcycle I was going to work on. I'm re-excited about this. And it isn't that it has to go. It's just you got to have a working space. You got to be able to find your tools or whatever. That might be something that was old, that was generational, that God wants you to take that thought. And it's like my uncle, he probably has, 6, 7 motorcycles, but he takes some really vintage motorcycles and builds them out and, repaints and does all this kind of stuff. So something that was in there that kind of looked junky is so like amazing. And he loves to be able to have the spot to park that in his garage. He took something that the devil meant for evil in a way, right? Because it was old and broken down and you couldn't use it, and he made it into something that was a prize. God will do that. But then there's other things you're digging through and you're just like, oh, this is that project that I was going to work on. Oh, man, that's another thing I got to do. And God will just say, you know what, throw it out. I don't want you working on that project. That's old school. That's old news, whatever. You're over here working on this new thing. Don't let that take up space, time, and energy in your brain. Yeah, but I promised my dad, and he always wanted to. Well, that was his project. That was his time. You're in your space right now in your time. This is your garage. And if you want your computer of your brain to work correctly, you better clean out the garage. So I'm talking pretty straight because there's no way around it. The yeah buts, that'll be, yeah, but I'm scared. Yeah, but I'm tired. Yeah, but I don't know if I can face it. Yeah, but I'll cry. Yeah, but I might get angry. Yeah, but this could trigger me. Well, leaving it in there is going to, for sure, trigger you eventually. You have to get in a safe space that if you're going to clean out certain boxes, get with some people who are safe that can say, we're going to face this together. We're not scared. I'm not going to be afraid of this. We're going to get this cleaned out. And so when you see that, when you know that you're in a safe place, you get permission to actually do it. I'm giving you permission to get at the computer of your brain or the garage of your mind, however you want to say it, and clean out the hoarding. There's so much fear. Fear is saying, I can't touch that box. That was my grandma's. Fear is saying, I can't open that. That belonged to my dad. Fear is saying, I made a mess and this was the last pieces of that mess and now they're in this box and I'm supposed to fix it. I don't even know how. I'm afraid is really a big issue at the base of these things. Even if you get mad, anger, we are learning, right, is a secondary emotion. So you got angry, okay? Bible says be angry, but don't sin in your anger. It doesn't say don't ever feel the emotion of anger because you're so ungodly. No, God himself has anger. And the kind of anger isn't the kind of worldly anger, the fleshly anger. It's like, hey, you know what? I want this to stop now. I'm putting an end to this now. So if we're going to have emotions of anger, let's just learn to use them to the benefit of the situation. Like, I'm about done with messing around with this box. In fact, every time we clean the garage, I just move it on this shelf, then I take it off and I put it on a shelf over here. I put it at the back of the front, I put it at the front of the garage. I even put it in the trunk of the car, but it never goes anywhere. You have to open it up, and we're going to have to process what's in there. And as we do that, as we begin to process these things, you're going to refeel some of them. You're not going to die from that. Give yourself a reality check. I'm giving you a reality check. Your feelings are your feelings, and you don't like when someone else tells you you shouldn't feel that way, then don't tell yourself that. Don't tell yourself, stop feeling, stop feeling. No, how about say, wow, these are some pretty intense feelings, and I'm feeling it. Where did that come from? What's going on inside of me? How do I regulate this? It's like, whoo, over the top, like emotions. We have to acknowledge that you have feelings and your feelings count. Sometimes we have feelings from a story base where we have an unrealistic story base, but you still have the feelings. So that's why some people say, well, you shouldn't feel that way because that's not what happened. And that, well, too late. I already do feel this way. Now I'm dealing with the feelings of this way. We can go back in and restructure the story, reframe the story, investigate the story. But the feelings don't just go out the windows of your ears in this computer. They want clarification. They want to feel safe, so that they can be processed and unpacked and put away. Hoarding is a real thing. When you take real thoughts and you hoard them, it's tough stuff. And I want you to know that in the hoarding of the mind, it weighs the body down. A lot of sicknesses, a lot of diseases. Think about the word dis-ease. Something's dissing your ease. A lot of them are the overweighing of the mind. And now the mind is actually what's supposed to run your organs, your soul, your mind, will, and emotions. Your subconscious is like in charge of that. That's its job. So you run this thing backwards or upside down. Now we got trouble. We got trouble when it comes to that. It has to be in a spot where we acknowledge these feelings and get them out of our body. The effect that it's having on the mind is going to eventually have the effect on the body. And so when you look at, am I going to clean this garage or not? Well, how healthy do you want to be? How healthy do you want to be? How free do you want to be? It's the thing you're mad about is that you're not. So let's do something about it. Let's take this to God. Let's face that garage and let's face the fact we've hoarded some things and we need to get them out. That's what the altar is for. That's what your prayer room is for. That's when you're driving to work and you're like talking to God, tears are running down your face. And that's what that's for. That's where you unpack something you didn't want to see. You didn't want to see it the first time. Why would you want to look at it now? I'm trying to encourage you, put courage into you to face this thing that's been weighing you down. It's trying to take you out. It's trying to cut you off at the knees. It's trying to pull the rug out from underneath you. It's trying to make it reoccur all over again. Come on now, let's get real and allow ourselves to feel and give ourselves permission to deal. And then we'll first heal.